Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Blaster Master 02. In the last part we hit up planet Divido for the first time, but we had to leave because the planet is very much split in half. Now we need to travel through Area D in order to access the second half of it. We also did some Planetoids last time. We're going to start off with another relatively annoying one here back in Area D. Like I said last time, this is when you're meant to fight Leibniz and Garuda, but you can go out of your way to do that early, like we did earlier, because I like getting the health ups from this area as soon as I can. So last time we picked up the Axel Charger, and like I mentioned then, that is a sub-weapon that consumes ammo over time to remove limiters on your blaster rifle's levels, making each one do more things. Let's go over what those do now. With the level 1G blaster, it increases its damage by 50%, and it removes the on-screen shot limit, so that's just as many shots on screen as you can mash fire now. The Stinger's damage gets increased by 50%. The Splasher's range decay is removed on initial firing, and it always fires at full range. On top of that, more 50% damage increases. The Seeker projectiles will now bounce off their targeted enemy up to 7 times rather than just 4. The Absorber Shield weapon's damage is increased by 50% while it's moving, but the biggest thing there is that the on-screen limit is increased from 1 to 10 shields, which can be pretty useful. The Whip's kind of funny. Its attack delay is removed. Its damage isn't touched at all. It's just how fast you can fire it, and now it's as fast as you can mash that button, so you can whip it real good if you're good at button mashing. The Charge Shot, level 7's damage is increased 50% across all charge levels. And its charge rate is basically doubled in speed, so you can get some pretty big damage out pretty quickly there. And then the Wide Buster's damage and width decay is removed. So it always is firing at full power, which is just busted. So our ultimate reward here on D3 is what we just got. That is the Revol Buster. The Revol Buster is a very fast, very strong shot that explodes a small area upon contact, doing about 1.5 times the G-Crusher's base damage to anything caught in that blast. It's very good against enemies that are relatively quick to begin with, like the worms we saw back on Planet Divido. What's interesting is you can have as many shots of it as you can on screen at once, but it's the only one of the Sophia abilities that actually has an ammo count that needs to refill. You can only have up to 6 shots at a time. So you can either pace those out or mash fire them. Whenever you run out of shots, there's then a 1-second reload time that takes about 15% of your SP to generate another set of 6. You can do an automatic reload if you have at least 1 shot left, though, and swapping to another main weapon. However, that takes longer than letting the real reload thing happen, so not really worth it. It's an interesting idea, and the area of effect it has can be useful, but I much prefer the G-Crusher shot, despite its lower power, because I can just mash fire it faster. It's weird. They did a really good job balancing and making all of Jason's weapons do some cool stuff in this one, but Sophia feels like it kind of got left by the wayside. We finally made it into Area F2. It really is the opposite of F1. Adam and its pilot Stein must be in this area somewhere. We can't waste any time finding Stein for Tess's sake. Agreed. Let's begin the search. Before that, though, let's talk to Eve for some more information once again. Area F2. Well, this snow makes it hard to move. The environment was disrupted by the dimensional distortions. Watch your step, and make sure not to get caught in the snow. GAIA-SOPHIA can avoid sinking with the burn spark or hover, but we gotta be careful with our SP consumption. Hey, have we had this conversation before? Well, the snow here is just as easy to sink into as the sand in Area F1, so gotta be just as careful as before. So, this being the ice half of the world, we are going to be dealing with a little bit of more slippery stuff to start, especially in the sides, the top-down areas. But the main thing is now the quicksand has been replaced with snow, which you do slowly sink through, but you can actively speed it up by melting it with burn spark. With that said, you want to be a little careful if you do that, because that means you might drop right down onto some dimensional distortions, like right there if I had done that. I think the ice half of this planet is ultimately easier to navigate, if only because it takes less time due to A, its slightly smaller nature, but also not having to wade through all the snow. Because no matter what in F1, you have to wait to fall through at least 3 to 4 bits of sand, I want to say. Whereas you can just melt all the snow instantly. With that said, while we are going to be having some caverns that are largely ice-based, they are going to start mixing and matching these mechanics now a lot on top of the switches. And it makes for some pretty interesting dungeons, albeit very maze-like in their structure because of how much you might want to search around for certain switches and all that. I like it, but I was definitely stuck here for a while on the first playthrough. Admittedly, in retrospect, though, that kind of makes sense, because we are pretty close to the end of the game at this point. 0-2 is a longer game than 0-1, from memory at least. I think my LP was shorter than 13 parts for 0-1. And some of that extra length comes from what the next portion of the game is structured like anyway for 100%, but part of it is just because the end game is a little more intense. That's partially because, again, they weren't remaking an NES game with extra cutscenes. With that said, time for another enemy rush, so time for our usual shtick. And this is a very particularly worth it to do side cave, even if you don't want like all the sub-weapons and all that, because behind it lies the final health up in the game. If you're playing along and have done everything I have, you should now be at double the starting health, which actually I don't know what that is in math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 health. Yeah, it's weird. There's plenty of games like this where I see the health total and I just mark it as bars in my mind, but I don't actually look at the number until I have exactly 1 or 2 left. So sometimes I just won't actually know my HP percentages in that regard, math-wise. And you know, as much as I play the franchise, like, some of the king of that is, like, platformer Mega Man. Because, yeah, my weaknesses will usually do between 4 to 8 damage, depending on the game. But I'll only really pay attention to my health when I'm at like 2 or 3 left, because then it's a problem. And I want to say health bars in that series usually get to be about 20 to 28, depending on the game and entry. Maybe a little more in the case you start doing the Zero series health bar stacking. But at the same time, Mega Man's also a franchise where I remember more when I'm actively playing it, because of how my brain stores information regarding certain things I like. Like, I love Final Fantasy, and I love Trails, but barring a lot of plot notes, I'm not going to remember a certain strategy for a boss fight unless I'm actively refighting it kind of deal, you know? We're actually coming up on a split path here. The way forward in the game's actual progression is to the left, but we want to take a moment to burn spark the snow away and then drill smasher through this to come up here and find ourselves a planetoid map, if memory serves. So I was talking with some friends last night after finishing some Spider-Man 2, because that game just came out like 2 days ago now. And like the idea of like game progression came up and what we like in games versus what we don't like. And something that I thought about during that made me realize why some people might really prefer 0-1 and I think 0-3 from memory to this is admittedly the Planetoid system. Like, I like it because I think it's nice and condensed and the Planetoids each offer their own challenges. But there is something a little annoying in retrospect when I thought about it, about looking for the secret power-ups, and instead of finding the power-up outright, just finding a map for it. That's the same thing that they actively removed from the original GameCube release here in the West of Wind Waker. They removed the Triforce charts that led to Triforce charts. They just had Triforce charts, period, at that point. Then Wind Waker HD came out and only had a couple of Triforce charts left in it at that point at all. And on that aspect, I can see why people really wouldn't like 0-2 as much as 0-1. I think it is stronger on its level design aspects, only because, again, it's not having to behold itself to being relatively faithful to an NES game that, at times, could be a little ridiculous. But, oh well. Well, we saw the tank enter, so it's time for a fight. A metal attacker? Is that Adam?
What's this? Enemy reinforcements?
That voice. Is that Stein? We were sent by Tesset.
I've never seen this type of mutant attacker before. Is this some kind of new model?
Mutant attacker? Is there some kind of mutant that mimics the MA series? He must be mistaking us for one of those. Whoa, hold on, where? Jason, we've got trouble. The receiver on his end isn't set to output audio. Even though we can hear him clearly? What's up with that?
Come at me, mutant attacker. I'll knock the eyes out of your head.
This is a pretty fun fight. I like Nora MA03 Adam a lot. The main attack you're going to see early on is just moving left and right across the ground on the treads, rotating around to fire at you when it sees fit. It can fly up to the opposite corner of the screen and then drop down, leaving smoke behind, and when it drops down, that smoke will explode as a damage source. The big threat is whenever Stein gets out and slams gems into the Atom to activate boost mode. When it's in boost mode, its attacks do more damage. There's more aggressive variations of it, like it dashing across 3 of the walls in the room and then causing the exploding smoke. But the biggest thing is, it takes 1/10 damage when it's doing that. Also, it basically has an Excel burst from the first game, which is a little dangerous to say the least. It has homing missiles it can shoot at you while doing the smoke attacks. This fight can be a little hectic. The big thing is, it's a case where you just need to wait for it to be vulnerable. You can do damage while in boost mode, yes, but at the ratio you're going to be doing it, just wait for the attack volley to end, and then focusing on attacking it while it's stunned down on the ground. And I like this fight because of that. I like it being more focused on evasion until you see the moment to attack. It's one of the few fights in the game that requires you to be a little patient, and in that regard, I like it a lot. Come on, cut it out. We're not your enemy.
What's this? The mutant attacker can talk?
Finally, we got through.
That sounds like a woman. What's going on here?
Did we manage to get through to Adam? I got the passcode for Adam's system from Tessit and forced my way into the receiver. I may have been too forceful. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. Thanks, Eve. That was a game changer. Now listen up, Stein!
I see. Tess asked you to help her. Sorry for attacking you. I can't believe my comms were closed this whole time. I'm actually great with machines, but for the OS and the RAM-ROM, I let Tess handle all that stuff. I had no idea the comms even worked like that.
Well, in this vast universe, you wouldn't expect to meet another MA pilot, let alone have to communicate with them. It's a small miracle we were able to hear him in the first place.
Well then. I just did as this young lady said, and I got Tess on the line right away.
Stein, are you okay?
Yeah, just fine. I'm gonna come pick you up is what I'd love to say, but Adam looks like he won't cooperate. He's gonna need some maintenance.
Sorry, is that our fault?
Nah, it's thanks to that damn mutant, the one that created the dimensional distortions. I pushed Adam too hard when I was taking it on. Even before fighting you, Adam was in a rough spot.
Stein.
What's worse, the bastard escaped. Over to the desert side, even. We can't leave the atmosphere with Adam's boosters in this condition. Without doing some repairs, I can't go after him. Wait, since Tess is in the desert now, she might be in... Well, I guess she's fine, based on nothing.
Jeez, how mean, Stein!
In that case, why don't we take care of the boss mutant?
What?
We won't have any problem getting to the desert side in GAIA-SOPHIA.
True, that would definitely help.
Alright then, we'll go. I'll defeat that mutant myself.
Excuse me. In that case, Stein, can you?
Understood. Here, take this. Go on now. With this, you'll be able to destroy parts of the dimensional distortions. Sorry for getting you caught up in all this, but I'm counting on you.
And now we get the full Excel burst. Creates a high energy sphere of light. Press the sub button once again to charge, again to fire. This is this game's version of the giant cannon we had back in the first game, only it works quite a bit differently. To start, you can only activate it if you have at least a full bar of SP around on you. Once you do, a sphere of light will appear above you and charge for 10 seconds, absorbing upwards of 101% SP, at which point you can fire it off and it's a gigantic screen nuking projectile just about. And you can even use it to destroy parts of the dimensional distortions that have cracks in them. With that said, you can charge it faster than 10 seconds and with much less SP by doing things that use SP otherwise. Doing the Gaia system falls can recover up to 10% SP depending on the height. Taking damage is 5% SP. But the best way easily is just firing into the sphere with any of the main weapons. That is 3% per shot. And that means the auto cluster is absurdly good for charging this thing up. It's one of the best uses for that in the game on the whole. With that said, if you enter a shutdown state and aren't supplying it energy, it will slowly lose energy at the same rate it gained it. So you need to be kind of quick with it. Before we continue on to that, though, you may have noticed Adam's here near the entrance now, so let's talk to Stein and Co.
This won't be so easy.
What's the matter?
Oh, Jason. I need to outfit Adam for space travel. I'm gonna pick up Tess. But unfortunately, I don't have a booster up to the task. If we had any old spaceship, would have some extras lying around.
A spaceship, huh? I might know where to find one. I just need a booster. If I find one, I'll get it to Stein. That starts off the first of what I've been referring to as side quests throughout the game. I'm not doing that now. I'm gonna do all the side quests at once in a few parts. Just keep in mind that he wants a booster for later if you're following along. Also, I could jump cut back to Area F1, but there's Planetoids along the way, so we're gonna go and do those first. And we're starting off with one of my least favorite in the game. This is Planetoid F2. Remember the floating platform gimmick from Flosanta all the way back in like part 1 and 2? Now we need to do a giant circle with that to get that SP up. It's slow, there's checkpoints along the way, but it's kind of tedious. So let's go back to the full Excel burst, because there's some more to say about it. As you charge it, the orb above you does visually change upwards of 3 times. But if it makes contact with anything destructible, like enemies or destructible rocks, it'll actively deal just over a G-Crusher shot's worth of damage and lose 1 stage of charge, upwards of 33% of what you're putting into it. That is until you reach 100% on the charge, in which case you can just hit things with it willy-nilly and it will lose nothing. So once the full Excel burst hits 100%, SP degeneration stops and you can fire it off. But you're not technically done charging it at that point. You can supercharge the projectile for even more damage. But you have to do it in any of the methods you had to accelerate the Excel burst to start. So shooting into it, falling, or taking damage. Any of the shots will do 10% at that point. A fall can do upwards of 100% from 10%. And contact damage will do 25% at that point. At any point you want, though, during its charging or otherwise, you can press the sub-weapon button again and fire it off, and the damage it does depends on how much charge you put into it. At its lowest charge, it does apparently around 1.3 to 3 times the G-Crusher shot's damage. At a mid-charge, it's around 3 to around 5 times. At a high charge, it's between 5 and 7. At a full charge, it is 10 times, and at the highest supercharge, it is 14 times the G-Crusher shot damage. It is huge, it can do so much, but it takes so much to put into it that it's not very viable barring a very sparse few fights or the times you need to use it for progress, I find. On top of the fact there's not too many GAIA-SOPHIA bosses left in the game when I'm thinking about it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's about it. And I'd only recommend using... No, 6 actually. And I'd only recommend using the full Excel burst on 2 of those, honestly. With that though, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 10, we're gonna head back to Area F1 of DeVito and find ourselves the boss mutant. See you guys then.